Hey, so today we're jumping into adult ADHD. And if the first thing that pops into your head is a little kid who can't sit still, well, we've got a lot to talk about. See, in adults, this condition often gets mistaken for something else entirely, like being lazy or just having a flaky personality. But it's so much more than that. Let's get into it.
It really all starts with this one question, this puzzle that so many people grapple with. How is it possible that you can have this incredible, almost superhuman focus for something you find interesting, like a video game, a new hobby, whatever it is, but the thought of finishing one single, boring email feels impossible? This contradiction, it's the key to the whole thing.
And that central puzzle shows up in these really frustrating everyday ways. We're talking about that feeling of being chronically late, even when you swear you'll be on time. Constantly losing your keys, your phone, your wallet, again. Starting a million projects with all this passion and then just running out of steam. And oh man, feeling emotions so intensely that it can just completely hijack your day. These aren't just quirks, they're common signs.
Okay, so let's break down what's really going on here. Because the picture of ADHD in adults looks way different, way more subtle than that classic image we have from childhood. Hyperactivity is the perfect example. That kid who was literally climbing the walls, well, as an adult, that feeling doesn't just vanish. It turns inward. It becomes this deep, inner restlessness. Your legs might not be running, but your brain sure is. Just racing thoughts, one after another. That constant motion turns into tapping your foot, or clicking a pen, or just fidgeting nonstop while you're trying to sit still. It goes from being on the outside to being on the inside.
And this is maybe the most important thing to get. If any of this is starting to sound familiar, it is not a moral failing. It's not a character flaw. The Attention Deficit Disorder Association says it best. It doesn't mean you're lazy or unmotivated. It just means your brain is, well, it's wired differently.
So with that in our back pocket, let's get a little more formal. When doctors and scientists talk about ADHD, what are they actually talking about? Let's decode the diagnosis.
So, ADHD is what's called a neurodevelopmental disorder. That just means it's about how the brain grows and develops. And a crucial point here, it has absolutely nothing to do with how smart you are. It's a problem with the brain's management system, what experts call your executive functions. Think of it like this. The CEO of your brain is brilliant, but they have a really hard time with planning, organizing, and just managing the day-to-day operations.
It's also really important to know that ADHD isn't just one thing. There are three main flavors. You've got the predominantly inattentive type. This is the one people often miss. It's the daydreamer, the person who struggles to stay organized, who's always losing things. And guess what? This is the most common type in adults. Then you have the more stereotypical hyperactive/impulsive type. And finally, the combined type, which is, a mix of both.
Which brings us right back to that original puzzle. If this is an attention deficit, a lack of attention, then how on earth do you explain hyperfocus, that state where you're so locked in on something that the rest of the world just melts away for hours? This quote just nails it. For most people, you can direct your attention based on what's important. This is a priority, so I'll focus. But for the ADHD brain, attention isn't regulated by importance. It's regulated by interest or urgency. It's not a choice. The brain chemistry itself makes it incredibly hard to get engaged with something that isn't genuinely stimulating. So it's time to look under the hood. To really, truly get ADHD, we have to talk about the brain itself. Because this is where you see, once and for all, why this has nothing to do with willpower. I'm going to say that one more time because if you hear anything today, hear this. It looks like a problem with willpower. From the outside, it seems like you're just not trying hard enough, but it is not a problem with willpower. It's a problem with the way the brain is wired, period. Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine your focus is a cell phone signal. When you're doing something you love, you've got 5 bars. The signal is crystal clear. But when you have to do something boring, like a tedious report, it's like you're in a dead zone. The signal keeps dropping out. You catch a word here, a sentence there, but you can't maintain a solid connection. So, why is the reception so spotty? Well, it all comes down to chemistry. Your brain has something like 100 billion neurons, these tiny nerve cells. It's just a mind-bogglingly complex network, and the whole thing runs on chemical signals.
Okay, so here's a super simplified version of how a signal gets from A to B. An electrical spark travels down a neuron until it hits a little gap. To jump that gap, it releases a splash of chemicals. Those chemicals float across, get picked up by the next neuron, and boom, the signal continues. And then, and this part's really important, those little chemical messengers get reabsorbed or reloaded so they can be fired again.
And this is the heart of the matter. In a brain with ADHD, that whole system of releasing and reloading those chemical messengers, it's just less efficient. It's inconsistent. That's the bad reception. It isn't that the chemicals aren't there, it's that the brain struggles to use them effectively, especially for tasks that aren't lighting up the interest centers.
And that chemical inconsistency doesn't stop at focus. It hits emotions hard. A small frustration that someone else might just shrug off can feel, to someone with ADHD, like a computer virus has just taken over their entire operating system. It consumes all the processing power, and it's impossible to think about anything else.
Okay, so understanding the why is a huge, huge relief. But it's only half the story. The real question is, what can you do about it? So now let's talk about moving from struggle to strategy.
First up, let's talk about medication, because there's a great analogy for it. Think of ADHD meds like eyeglasses. Glasses don't cure your vision, right? They don't fix your eyes, but they are an amazing tool that helps you see clearly while you're wearing them. For some people, medication does something similar. It helps that chemical signaling system work more consistently.
It's also so important to know that ADHD rarely travels alone. Get this, a massive 80% of adults with ADHD also have at least one other condition, most commonly anxiety or depression. This overlap makes things really tricky because the symptoms can get all tangled up. It's why getting a really thorough professional diagnosis is so critical.
But beyond all that, there is this fascinating paradox tucked away inside the ADHD brain. While we know the executive function system, the CEO, struggles with being consistent, researchers have found that a different part of the brain, the part that controls habits, works perfectly fine. In fact, once a habit gets locked in, it is incredibly strong and stable.
And right there, that is the tragedy of ADHD in one sentence. The one system that could be a total game changer, the habit system, needs the one thing that the condition makes almost impossible: consistency.
But, and this is a really big but, that's not where this story ends. Because that isn't just the tragedy, it's also the saving grace. It means the potential for massive positive change is right there. The hardware is working perfectly. It's just really, really hard to program.
So I want to leave you with this question. Knowing that your brain's habit-building machinery is totally intact, and that once it's programmed, it's incredibly powerful. What is the one habit, no matter how small you have to start, that if you could build it, could be your saving grace?